The big glass. Greetings. I learned about my wife's Ed in 2016 when I walked in on her in the bathroom. She broke down and admitted she had a chewing and spitting habit of 15 years. I was shocked and frankly upset she had kept it a secret, as my ex-wife was anorexic and I have 2 boys. I really didn't want both the primary women in their lives suffering from Ed. Nonetheless, I stayed to try and work through it with her in a supportive and non-judgmental way. We were breaking and she wouldn't talk about it much, so it went unresolved and untreated. Then when finances turned around for us in 2018, I could afford counseling for both of us separately and together. My therapist urged me to get her to track what she was spending on her habit and to find a way to shut it down. She refused for months and I finally had to cut her off financially. After a month of me doing all the grocery shopping, we deduced she'd been spending $1,000 a month on her habit. She replaced her habit with gum chewing, which she still does on and off, but it's gotten a lot better most days. We started getting low on funds in 2019 and had to cut out therapy. At that point, she was on the road to recovery, it seemed. Then in 2020, I stepped on a scale to learn I'd gained 48 pounds from the time we'd met, and the doc said I was 40 pounds overweight and, being 50, needed to drop at least 30 pounds for my heart health. That's when the new trouble started. The minute I tightened the belt, she started freaking out. She doesn't let me cook and is in charge of all our dinners. For a while I let her make me lunch, but I stopped because I didn't like her having control over so much of my food. There's no doubt she's been feeding me 2 big portions for years, as I'm highly active and work out at least 45 to 90 minutes a day. She says she doesn't like to eat less than her man, so my portions are always much bigger. She started with a new therapist 6 months ago who diagnosed her with anorexia and body dysmorphia. She's been thin, but I hadn't realized she'd dropped below 100 pounds. The therapist is good, I think, but my wife will not tell me about her program or what she's doing, other than she's microdosing meds and using cognitive behavior therapy. Neither has seemed to do much yet. There doesn't seem to be any nutrition plan to get her to gain weight. After dropping the first 14 pounds, I plateaued and started fooling around. So, I started intermittent fasting and cut out snacks and dessert, cutting down to about 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day, which my fitness app says I need to do to drop 1 to 2 pounds a week. So, what I'm doing is barely a diet and it's super safe. Unfortunately, it's hyper-triggering to my wife. Every single day she is looking over my shoulder, tracking what I eat, counting calories in her mind, accusing me of restricting, and will not allow me to cook dinner for myself. She's developed a habit of eating light dinners and then gorging herself on fruit. If I don't eat dessert, even after eating 2x her portion at dinner, she calls herself names like fatty and gets very triggered and upset. She's also started intermittent fasting alongside me, which is very unhealthy for her at her weight. But she is so codependent she can't get herself to eat until I've eaten at 1 p.m. So, I've tried to set boundaries around meals, telling her calmly and kindly I need to feel in control of my own food intake and can't have someone looking over my shoulder. That didn't work. Then I tried to use logic, showing her my calorie tracking app and assuring her the numbers don't lie. I showed her my weight tracking, which has me on a 5-pound pattern up and down for 4 months now, and explained that it's impossible for me not to lose weight if I'm restricting the way she thinks I am. She gets super defensive then and tells me to stop trying to use rationality, as she's very sick and it just makes her hate herself more. More than once she has said she wants to die, that my diet is killing her and she can't eat half the time and can't gain weight because of it. Oftentimes I'll overeat if she makes too big a portion because I know if I don't finish it, she'll freak out. Those nights I spend the night suffering from acid reflux. Oh, and BTW, I'm pretty sure she has undiagnosed BPD or HPD and has severe abandonment and emotional regulation issues. So, I'm looking for some advice here. Is it okay for me to ask her about her recovery plan? Nutrition plan. What is she doing? It seems like there really is none and she's just flailing about, wallowing in her self-loathing. As a caregiver, how much can I get involved in coaxing her to get on the right program or find more help? One idea I had was to come up with a meal plan for myself, share it with her, and show her every week ahead of time what I'm eating with calories. I hate giving up that much control and needing to stick to a rigid plan, but I'd do it if it would help her. I'm really at a total loss. I love her and want to stay with her and support her recovery, but she's making life miserable, and more important, she's interfering with my own health and weight loss struggles. I can handle being with a recovering ED patient, but I shouldn't have to sacrifice my own health in the process. Oh, and side question, our food budget has been crazy, up to $25 a month for the 2 of us plus my 2 teen boys who are here 25%. We managed to bring it down to $2,000, and I asked her to track her fruit spending. Mind you, I make 90% of the income and she is supposed to be finding a job but really isn't looking. She resisted for 4 months and finally tracked it to $300 a month, just on fruit. We want to go on vacation, so I asked her to cut it to $4 a day. Now at night when her 4 fruit is gone, she goes into a funk and is angry she has to be on a budget. I've asked her to tell me what's a reasonable amount, but she won't give me a number. It's the accountability she doesn't like. She deflects by nitpicking the things that I buy. Am I wrong to ask her to rein in her fruit addiction and stick to a budget? 2 years later, my wife and I had an open relationship before we were married. As soon as I started seeing someone, she freaked and wanted to go monogamous. Only she kept her side open and turned her other partner into an affair. We split for a while but eventually got back together and have made it work 9 years. She agreed on no contact with the AP. My wife and I own a business together and AP contacted my wife on Instagram. I randomly saw a notification in Facebook because I guess her Instagram account is connected to our business page. So, I read the thread and he had some business questions and she suggested they take a phone call and gave her number. Then an hour later the thread was deleted. I then checked our Sprint logs and she called him right after deleting the thread for 41 minutes. It's possible it was semi-innocent and she just answered his business question. But obviously deleting the thread and calling him same say after telling him to call her is super suspicious. If you were me, would you bust her on it right away? Or wait and see if there are more calls and texts that materialize? I can access the call logs, but it's a tedious process. The main issue is we based reconciling our relationship on no contact, and she not only broke the agreement but she immediately hit her tracks. An open relationship can work if there is absolute trust, and both partners have to have secure attachment, complete honesty. Neither of us have that and we were bad candidates for it. I do know those who it works very well for. When I decide it's time to confront, if you were me, would you just directly confront her on the Instagram messages and the call? Or would you ask a bunch of questions like, have you had any contact with X in the last 5 years? When? How did you contact them? Calls, texts, emails, etc. She'll know right away that I know about Instagram, but she won't know if I have awareness of other times, and I may be able to pull more information out by interrogating her. 2 years later, my wife of 10 years and I frequent a bar near our house. The bartender is 27 and my wife is 48. She's always been overly friendly with him but hasn't crossed any lines. The other night we were at dinner at a different place and he was there as a customer. She saw him at the bar and invited him to join us. She was pretty flirtatious, touching her hair at times and laughing too loud at his jokes. She teaches a fitness class in the neighborhood and towards the end of the night invited him to her class as her guest and then proceeded to say it like 5 times. Made sure he knew the address, which of course is 2 blocks from his house, and was very aggressive in wanting him to take her class. Am I a fool? Is she a damn cheater? Or am I being overly suspicious, possessive? If it were your wife, how would you feel? What would you do? Like, comment. Time for you and your wife to open up communication. What are you lacking in communication skills? She may just like him as a friend. She may fantasize about him. She may want him in bed. She may just feel neglected in some way by you or want to make you jealous. You need to communicate with your wife in a non-combative way that has happy results for each of you. You chose an open relationship before marriage. Now this your relationship after 2 years, and you wonder why. Story 2. My wife continually complains about being unsatisfied with her weight and how she looks, feels. I find her to be beautiful and nice. I work out frequently and have been trying to eat a healthier diet lately to keep myself in shape and living a long, healthy life. I have tried to encourage her to join me working out and helping choose healthier meals for us to eat, but she tells me she doesn't want to diet and can't be bothered to exercise. I find myself getting more and more frustrated with hearing the complaints about herself, yet she isn't willing to make attempts to improve. Has anyone else had this with their partner, and if so, what did you do? Did anything help, or is it really just a lost cause? I know people won't make a change unless they are willing, but I'm hoping there could be some way to motivate. At the beginning of my marriage, I fell into a deep depression. I think internally I was pretty unsure if I made the right choice to get married. I was still young and foolish and didn't know if I was ready to settle down yet. One day I got a message from my ex-GF. She had over the years popped back into my life and usually tuned her out and moved on. This time was different, and found myself having an enjoyable conversation with her, catching up on life and experiences. Looking back, I think she represented a time in my life of freedom and wild irresponsibility. I don't know if I ever really loved her when we dated, but I knew she lit a fire of lust I had never felt elsewhere, unfortunately. We continued talking, in secret. This lasted for months. I knew what I was doing was wrong, and even then, I had convinced myself it was okay because we were just talking about life and there was nothing physical. I didn't tell her I loved her or missed her or wanted to be together. I told her I was happily married. I should have realized what I was getting myself into. She tempted me with nude pictures and dirty talk and I ate up the attention. I didn't want a life with her. I knew she was toxic and there was good reason I broke up with her on the first place. I eventually told myself what I was doing needed to stop, but I didn't know a good way to end it. Before I could reach that point, it was too late. My wife had been told of what was happening. I felt my whole world slipping away around me. I deleted all the messages and blocked my ex so she wouldn't be able to contact me again. I explained what was said and for how long it had been going, and it never being my intentions to do anything more. I never discussed details or mentioned the pictures or dirty talk, as I knew those things wouldn't help. I felt awful. We talked and eventually we rekindled our relationship. Looking back, I know how wrong everything I did was. I was so blind to what I was throwing away at the time. While I wish I could go back and never have done it, I'm also in a way glad it happened so I truly could realize what I have and how badly the things done were. Our lives together have been for the most part amazing since. It's been nearly a decade since. I know she doesn't fully trust me still and never will. I know she is still in deep pain from how I hurt her. To this day I still tread lightly on certain topics and avoid movies and shows with certain themes. I'm always on edge because I don't know when something will trigger her and we will have to rediscuss my mistake. I know I was the one in the wrong and that I should need to reassure her when she wants, but I make myself absolutely sick over it every time. I want to avoid ever bringing up the subject again and move on and live our lives how they were supposed to be. I do everything I can to make sure I don't put myself into any other situation. I don't have friends in real life or otherwise. I don't talk to anyone outside of work aside from family. I won't have a conversation with anyone of the opposite gender in regard to any topic other than work. I try not to spend any time on my phone that isn't necessary. I spend the majority of my time at home. I still feel haunted by my past. I feel like my guilt and my anxiety is eating me alive most days. I know I probably don't deserve it, but I want to live in peace and feel like I have done a lot of growing since. I talked to a therapist shortly afterwards, but moreover on my depression than anything. I want to see a therapist again just to go over these feelings and other things, but I'm afraid of mentioning it to my wife because the only other time I have went was for my depression after this all happened, and I don't want her to think I am back to that state of mind or those actions again. I know that my not disclosing all the dirty details is wrong still, but I felt like I was sparing her from things that would be unnecessarily hurting her more. If there was something physical, I would have mentioned it, which she already assumes something physical did happen even though I have reassured her that it did not. The closest thing was us meeting up to chat in person, which felt not really different than catching up with an old friend. Obviously this was more. I know a lot of people are in two minds when it comes to affair details. Some want to know everything and some want to only know what is important. I guess I only really gave her what I thought would be easiest to stomach. I just don't want to open old wounds or create new ones. I have issues opening up, always have. I tend to keep most things to myself and that's how I have learned to live. I wish I could be more open about things, but I don't know how and I'm at panic even thinking about it. Aside from my frequent anxiety, I feel quite amazing most days. I know I have had a depression episode here or there over the last few years, but nothing as bad as it was. I seriously want to see a therapist for my other issues, but I'm just frozen in place on telling my wife because I know if I mention going, she is going to automatically think I'm cheating again. I'm afraid to even show signs of depression to her. I think in a way I'm deeply still mad at myself. I hate myself for who I am. I'm a person who builds walls around myself to protect my secrets because I feel like if I let anyone else in, they will hate me too. I have never had anyone close that I felt like I could open up to. Anytime I did, it went poorly and I felt betrayed and embarrassed. I wish to be open, but I'm afraid of opening up and losing her and our life we have built. Background: I had an IA with my ex-GF nearly a decade ago. Wife found out and things went to hell for a bit. We had worked things out and I admitted my mistakes, most of them. I know I have my faults, especially when it comes to privacy, secrets, honesty, and communication. These are all things I want to improve on, but unsure how, as this is how I have been most of my life. Topic: I'm unsure how to operate like a normal person. I feel like I did in a way prior to recently, but since the E and such I have been very cautious. I don't talk to any of my friends from before my marriage and I haven't made any in-person friends outside of work since being married. The closest I have had to friends recently was before having kids. I participated in an online gaming group. I was close to some of them. After having kids, I haven't been able to find the time and lost contact with them. My wife was somewhat aware I had online friends, but we never really discussed anything about them. Aside from that, I have a few former coworkers who I still rarely keep in contact with. They don't live nearby and we would unlikely hang out in person. I always feel weird keeping in contact with them because it's very random. We will chat and it's usually short-lived, hey how are you doing, or sending some memes. My wife has asked if I have heard from them since she met them previously. I usually give a short update on how things have been busy. It's not something we regularly discuss. I always feel awkward about the whole situation because I don't talk to anyone in front of my wife. Part of the reason is because our at-home life is usually too busy for me to spend time on my phone. Part of it is because since discussing about the E again as of last year, I have felt very uneasy about using my phone in front of her. I know she has good reason to be cautious, but it always hurts when she is staring at me while I'm doing something on my phone and asks who I'm texting. Or if I'm showing her something and a random notification pops up and I clear it and she asks why I'm hiding things. Recently our physical life has been on the rocks. We haven't had slept together in nearly half a year. I have tried to make it happen with no success. She blames me for it and asked if there was someone else keeping me satisfied. I get the reasoning, I really do. I just hate that it's become like this and I feel so uncomfortable with doing anything because it might lead her to distrusting me even more. I want to be able to make friends and not feel like I'm being untrustworthy, and I want to be able to use my phone like I would normally without being interrogated. Maybe an affair. I trust her more than anyone in the world. She doesn't like attention, even more so physical attention from others. She used to tell me even if some bot messaged her. She doesn't have it in her to hide secrets. If nothing else, she absolutely wouldn't have the time. She has all the loyalty I wish I had. I have trouble opening up to her about the incident. I know I betrayed her trust deeply. Up until last year, things had been a ton better, almost to the point where it was as if it never happened. I know that will never truly be the case, but I enjoyed the feeling. Now I just feel paranoid over every move I make and overthink everything. She knows most of it. The only bit she really doesn't know is of how my ex was doing porn at the time we talked and sent me some pictures and a bit of dirty talk. My wife thinks there is more, but mostly it's because she thinks there was some physical activity which I haven't touched another woman in the entirety of us being together. It's been so long I don't even really recall the details of it. Just mainly the highlights. She wanted to discuss it again last year because she thinks there might have been physical aspects to it, but there wasn't. I don't think it would do any benefit talking about the other details. We did some counseling after it initially happened. I don't even remember what was discussed, it's been so long. Some days I wonder if keeping our relationship going is actually worth it or not. I love her more than I ever have, but I feel like if there will always be these pain points to navigate and the unknown possible fallout at any moment. It's tiring. I don't really even enjoy watching new TV shows or movies with her because if there is so much a mention of infidelity, it triggers her, and then best case scenario, our whole night is ruined. It's not all been distrust. Since the year, I have very rarely been out drinking at the bar with some friends and to strip clubs for bachelor parties. These were all things she had approved of and at one point even encouraged. Comparing my relationship to others is often odd because while we have this event in the past that sometimes causes distrust, she still seems to trust me more than some other guys' wives trust them. I definitely don't trust myself. I wish I was more open, but I really don't know how to be, especially with my laundry list of problems. I mean, how do you open up about things in general? I feel like that is a surefire way for things to go to hell. My wife is exactly the conservative, religious, shy, body issues, dresses modestly, shows little to no physical drive kind of person. Sometimes she surprises me and says things like once she said she has had thoughts about other guys, but that she knows she should always avoid being put into a situation. She has said she wants me still physical but just hasn't had the right timing. She has one guy friend at work that she is close to. They have worked together the whole time they have both been employed. They go out to work lunch sometimes still. I once thought if there was anyone that she would do anything with, it would probably be him. I don't really think so though. He isn't her type and she isn't his. We have had some long periods of non-physical before. She is the type that pretty much needs the right conditions before she will even consider it. I have always had a really high physical drive. I probably had more fun in 1 year of high school than I have had my entire marriage. I don't have social media. I dropped it years ago. I don't have male or female friends. I used to have both. I cut them all out due to not having the time, and I did get a little close to a female friend of mine. Once I realized I was in familiar territory, I ceased communication because I didn't want to go back down that road. I know she doesn't trust me still 100%. Up until this last year, I felt like she did trust me more than what she does now. I haven't done anything differently. I can't tell her the full details at this point. Hard to say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you my ex, who you are jealous of and is very experienced and very willing to do whatever, also does dirty videos now and sent me a sample of her photo shoot and talked dirty to me. I don't know how that would help her self-image at all. I should have told her about the pictures when talking about it. I don't know if bringing it up and telling her about omitted details after all this time is good. I never asked for them. My wife never asked if pictures were exchanged that I recall. I didn't want to overshare. I think my wife was really only concerned if I had feelings for her, which I don't, and if anything physically happened, which nothing did. It was stupid, cheap thrill and super not worth the conflict it became. I was young and still not fully ready to be settled down. My comment: it takes years to repair a broken relationship. It is your job to find out if it is worth it or not. Story 3. My boyfriend and I are in a serious relationship and we live together. We have good communication so we don't keep secrets from each other. A month ago, he told me that he has a female friend on social media. He had never mentioned her before because she lives in another state and he met her a long time ago while he lived there. He brought her up because she started being physical with him and almost coming on to him even though she knows he's in a relationship. Thankfully, my boyfriend stopped her and didn't accept her advances. He hasn't talked to her since and he told me he will stop all communication with her. I'm glad he was honest and open with me. It's been a month since he told me that, but I saw that he's still friends with her on social media. I know this is wrong, but I snooped at his phone and saw that this woman is very attractive, and before she made advances on my boyfriend, he was initiating contact with her, but it seemed all innocent though. I didn't see anything bad, but he was wishing her a happy new year, saying good morning to her and just being nice, trying to talk to her. I told my boyfriend why he kept her as a friend instead of blocking her. I mean, why would he keep her knowing she's physically attracted to him? He knows the friendship is over because men and women can't be friends if there's attraction. He told me she's divorced and going through a lot of drama because she's been in toxic relationships and he doesn't want to be so mean. He reassured me he will never contact her again. Should I trust him? I'm a grown woman. I'm 35 years old. My parents never got along and they used to fight since I was a little girl. They stayed together all these years and fight like cats and dogs. I don't know why they never got divorced, but they are now in their 60s and my mom keeps whining and complaining to me that my dad never helps her. But my mom is not a saint and treats my dad like crap too. I've seen it. Thank God I don't live with them, but I still hear about their problems often and I'm exhausted. It's like a never-ending thing even if I live on my own. My mom thinks it's fun to hear about her problems. She decided to sleep on a couch years ago because she didn't want to sleep with my dad. And now that she's old, she complains and plays the victim for sleeping on a couch. Well, she chose to sleep there. If she didn't want to, she needed to get her own place away from my dad. She wants me to feel sorry for her, but I'm not. Their marriage is affecting me because my mom is old, and since she constantly fights with my dad, he won't help her. So, I have to rescue my mom pretty much. I'm worried as I already resent both of my parents a lot and feel like I will end up hating them for being selfish instead of divorcing for the peace of everyone. I asked my dad why he would stay with someone who treats him bad like my mom, and he gave me the most stupid answer. He said, because I married her to be with her forever. So even if she insults him and they yell at each other and there's no love, he's supposed to be stuck by her no matter what. That's his mentality. Please, if you have children, don't do this to them. They'll end up resenting you. My mom doesn't drive anymore, and when she's mad at my dad or they fight, my dad doesn't feel like driving her. So sometimes she'll rely on me. I don't mind helping here and there, but I feel like I'm paying the price for their bad marriage because if they acted better, none of this would happen. They're both very childish. I'm worried that it will become worse with time and they won't behave properly when they become elders. Am I going to be responsible for fixing their problems? Even if they're my parents, I think they're toxic and I hate to associate with them and take care of them when they cannot act like mature and responsible adults. My comment: sometimes the only thing you can do with toxic family members is move away and cut off all or most contact. At least this would mean they have to take responsibility for themselves.